Hmm. Hello, everybody. You ready for another fantastic week in my class? Sure you are. Okay, so this is week 2. It's going to be about Judaism, which is Jewish religion or faith, and scheduled for the 18th of October. Okay, so October 18th, no class is always on a Monday. So I hope everybody's doing well and enjoyed the first week, which was an intro to the religions and the class and the book. Okay, so without further ado, let me go to the material. And let me minimize myself. Okay, I'm out of the way. We go to home. And then try to go to slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so again, the class, if you forgot the name, Introduction to the World's Religions. Again, October the 18th. And as you shall see, this week is on Judaism. Okay, so let me dig into this material. Again, sometimes I'll be putting on the air conditioner, aka aircon, which is getting hot in here right now. So I'm going to turn it on. That's the sound you'll hear. Don't get confused. All right, here we go. Judaism. Judaism is the oldest of the Abrahamic or Abrahamic religions. The term Abrahamic describes 3 faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They all believe in Abraham. Okay. If you need to know the structure, Judaism was first, Christianity came second, and Islam came last. So there is an interconnection of the 3, at least in the beginning. So all trace, which means you can follow your origins or beginnings of their traditions to Abraham, described in the Hebrew Bible. So Hebrew is going to be Judaism, and used by both Christians and Jews. Accounts vary in the Quran, which is the holy book of Islam. There is some dispute about whether Abraham is a historical figure who lived in the 19th century BCE. This chapter will also explore the 4 main Judaic variations: Orthodox, Hasidic, Conservative, and Reform. That's quite a lot. This is an intro class. I might skip over the Conservative to hit the main points of Reform and Hasidic, since Conservative is very similar to Orthodox, so I don't want to be redundant. I'd rather introduce you new angles, new material, since they're different. The Orthodox, the Hasidic, and Reform. Conservative can kind of fit with Orthodox, so I might skip that. Okay. Each has its own set of observations, which many date back to ancient times. And by ancient times, I'm talking about more than 10 years ago. I don't want to hear funny stories from students. Teacher, aren't you ancient? I was not around in the time of Jesus. Sorry. A couple of years after, yes, but not exactly that time. All right, so we start with the main core of all 3, actually. But it started with Judaism, a belief in one God, not like your Romans, not like your Greeks, who had many, many gods. Okay. What do the Abrahamic faiths have in common? They share a belief in a single, all-powerful God as the creator and sustainer of the universe. Sustainer is someone who sustains or takes care of something, right? Someone could say your job sustains your lifestyle, right? This view was not always the case. Earlier Jewish texts maintained that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was just one of many gods and goddesses of the ancient Middle East. This changed about 700 BCE, however. By that time, monotheism, which is the technical word for a belief in one God, had become commonplace, which now we just use the word common in Judaism. It also became true in Christianity and Islam. If you've heard in Christianity, there shall be no gods, you shall not have no gods before me, right? Which means only one. In Islam, we'll always tell you about Allah, and there's no one above or before Allah. In each of the Abrahamic faiths, God is the absolute power. And it is the believers unwavering duty to follow God's ways in their daily lives. So unwavering means not changing your mind, not changing your thinking. You must follow the duty in God's way in your daily lives. And unfortunately, like I hear a lot of people now, it's funny, they change the religion for at least Christians for themselves. Actually, no, I've heard some other people from Muslims too. Like someone will say, well, I do this because I think God would want me to. You think he would want you to? Just follow the rule. That's it, right? Now, well, it's okay in my situation. So, so they start manipulating the faith when you better not change your mind or change the things to make it your way. It has to be God's way in your daily life, right? And for instance, I mean, even something, the strangest thing I heard was like, Islam is very much against, the technical term is homosexuality. The homosexuals, I don't know, when I was in my 20s or what have you, they chose the word gay to describe themselves. That wasn't the technical term. Gay meant happy. And I can remember being a boy and reading a book, and it would say something like, oh, I feel gay. Had nothing to do with sexuality. It meant that you were happy. But gays, as they say, co-opted the word. So anyway, back to my point. So Islam is very much against homosexuality. But, I'll see people and someone says, I'm a gay Muslim. I'm like, is that possible, right? Is that possible? So again, you should be unwavering. So Islam, for example, puts special emphasis on such unquestioning obedience to God. So again, you don't even ask, you must obey. Okay, there is no, well, what about this? And what about that? That's not supposed to take place. By way of contrast, Christianity and Judaism have a scriptural tradition of questioning, arguing, and debating with God. And that's true too. Not in the Catholic faith, but let's say an offshoot of the Catholic faith, a Christianity. You can go to their church and they will question the Bible. They will study the Bible to further your knowledge. But the Catholic Church doesn't allow you to do that. Islam definitely doesn't. And I don't think Judaism does either. You cannot argue and debate with the Lord. You have to be, as it says, unquestioning and obedient. Like an obedient child listens to their father. Father says, I want you to take out the trash. The trash is full. Why? You don't do that. Okay. And then we get off into origins and development, the covenant, which is a bond, like a contract, just to make you understand the situation between God and Abraham that represents the start of Judaism, appears in the authorized King James Version of the Bible, Genesis 12, 1-3. So that means that's when it's first is known about. So I'm at the bottom of the page, so I got to have at least one question, right? At least one. Okay, so let me get into that. Go to the whiteboard. Whiteboard's being bad. Let me get my pencil. Question 1. Get my little clock out of the way here. Kind of crowded where I'm at. Okay, question 1. Oops, I don't want all in capitals. What's going on with this computer? Okay, I should be able to stretch this into a onesie. Should not be an issue. Okay, Judaism is the oldest of what? Okay, so let me give you a bit to finish that. Again, I don't want my funny guys like Temujin or Alex or even Ochir when he decides to, and then say, Judaism is the oldest of what? Isn't it a sandwich? It's the oldest sandwich in the United States. We're not talking about sandwiches in a class of religion. Okay. All righty then. That's how we do it. Give it a go. That's on your first page, which is pretty short. Right? Pretty short stuff. Should be easy to find. Okay, think you got a hold on that? All right. Let me get the eraser. Repeating, Judaism is the oldest of what? Give you a hint. What are we talking about in this class? Oh, we're talking about sandwiches. No. Okay. Right. Back to the material. Okay, so we ended down here in origins and development with Genesis 12, 1 through 3. So let me proceed. Okay, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of my country and from thy kindred, which means people, family, and from my father's house unto a land that I will see thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make the name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. So this is where, this is that old formal English. And so he's saying, you have to get out of this place where you're at now, which was Egypt, basically. And they were used as slaves, and they had to find a new land. And once they found a new land, he will bless them, which I think everybody knows what a blessing is. And then, they shall have a happy life. Okay, so we'll get into more of this right here. Abraham followed God's instructions in his search for the promised land, which means the land that God promised them. And after many years, not weeks, not days, not like our busy lifestyle now. We want everything, as my Korean students say, pali pali pali. We don't get that at that time, right? Not at all. And after many years of wandering around in a place called Canaan, that's where they finally settled. Along the way, God tested his faith by asking them to sacrifice his son Isaac, which means kill your son to prove your faith to me. Now he asked, but that did not happen. But at the last minute, God intervened, stepped in, and stopped the sacrifice. Why did he do that? He was just testing the faith. He never wanted the boy to be killed. He just wanted to see if Abraham would at least attempt to listen to the Lord and try to do that. He then repeated his promise to Abraham of becoming the father of a great nation. Right, this new land, not only will they be happy, but he will be the father of a great nation, a great country. Abraham and his descendants, the people that came after him, settled in Canaan. When the famine came, and if you don't know what a famine is, that's when everybody's starving. There's not enough food. Abraham's son Jacob took his family to the land of Egypt. They settled in, and Jacob fathered many sons, and the family prospered. The descendants of Jacob's sons will later become the 12 tribes of Israel. The new Pharaoh of Egypt worried that Jacob's family might become more powerful than the Egyptians and came up with an idea to restrict their proliferation. Proliferation is a high-level word meaning having many children. Kill every newborn male child at birth. The account of this recorded in the Bible in Exodus has within its horror a wonderful story. All right. So I'm at I know I'm going to Moses, but let me throw a question in here and then I'll start Moses. I don't want to confuse information. Whiteboard. Pencil, question 2. Because remember, I want to give you the strongest questions that give you the most basic, strong information, not a bunch of, as we say, fluff. Okay, so you can remember great main points. That's my goal with you guys. So what represents the start of Judaism? Important stuff to know. Not a lot of fluff, like, well, what city did they settle in? Is that more important than knowing the start of Judaism? No, I don't think so. Okay, so take your time to answer that. So I hope everybody's doing well. A typical LA, like most places of the United States, it's already the 18th of October. So they've started fall. So it's at least rainy or cold or, it's in the back east, some places getting ready to snow. But here it's still hot. What can I say? Okay, you think you got a hold of that? All right, so let me get the eraser. What are the questions? What represents the start of Judaism? And please don't say, is it July 4th when we do the fireworks? No, it's not then. Oh, it's Christmas. No. Give me that important biblical answer. Connection between somebody and something. Okay. Right. So like I said, I wanted to get to this before I jumped into Moses. Okay. All right, so Moses, the midwives got around the Pharaoh's edict, which his declaration, his order, with some success. So the Pharaoh stepped up the campaign and ordered that every newborn son be cast into the river. So he kind of let up on killing them, but put them in the river, which basically is another way that they will eventually die. But I guess he thought that was being merciful, right? Pretty scary stuff. And if you don't know midwives, midwives are, and every country has had them. Some countries still use them. But a lot of people that lived in the country, in fact, my father was not born in a hospital. And you're not by a hospital, so there's a lady or ladies that live in the community, and they would come to your home and deliver the baby. So these midwives, again, there was no hospitals at the time, so midwives, especially if you didn't really have a family, like a mother or somebody, they were dead. They got around that, so they just said, hey, let's put in the river. The Israelites' daughters were spared. One Jewish mother decided to hide her newborn son. She made an ark from bulrushes, put the boy in it, and laid it in the riverbank. The daughter of the Pharaoh came to the river to wash herself, and when she walked along the bank, she saw the ark and told one of her maids to fetch it or go and retrieve it, go get it. Pharaoh's daughter opened the ark and saw a baby boy. It was crying, and she had compassion, which means she felt sorry for the baby. Remember, it's a Jewish baby. So being an Egyptian, she should have said, well, who cares? Let the basket go down the river and then it will die. Instead, she said, no, a baby's a baby. Doesn't matter what its race is. I want to save it. So the child became her son, and she named him, which was a secret at the time. And she named him Moses. When Moses was fully grown, he saw an Egyptian slave master beating an Israelite, because again, remember at that time, the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians. Moses, in anger, killed the slave master and had to flee or run away, escape to Egypt. He settled or began living in a rural country farming area called Midian. Around the same time, Pharaoh died during a time of great suffering for the Israelites. God remembered his covenant or contract with Abraham. He looked on the people and had respect for them. Moses was tending or taking care of his work in the desert when he came to a mountain. An angel appeared to him in the form of a flame. So flame is when fire stands up, right? That's a flame. So in the form of a flame, this angel appeared on a bush. The flame burned intently, which means strongly, but it did not consume or actually burn the bush, completely. A voice then came from the bush and the flame and told Moses that he had been chosen to deliver the people from the Egyptians, which means help them escape, and take them to another land flowing with milk and honey. God commanded Moses to return to the new Pharaoh. Yes, flowing with milk and honey, which, is a metaphor for there will be delicious things to eat and food that will sustain you. When I was a kid, okay, United States was a lot different. I missed the United States of that time. Now you get people that come here from other countries and right away they complain about the United States and it's a terrible place, but they keep on coming. I don't know why. But at that time, people came and I saw them kiss the ground and they said, we came from such a poor country, no ability to get a job. We're eating grass, we're doing whatever. They would say, God, United States is a land of milk and honey. We can have a dream and do things and what have you. But, unfortunately, different governments have come and gone and raised taxes and rents and food and everything. So it's unfortunately becoming like any other country. Like, for example, people will tell you that, someone can work full time at McDonald's, let's say, and that salary will not allow them to rent an apartment. Okay, they can't rent a one-bedroom apartment by themselves in most places, right? But when I was a kid, you could. That's how low the rents were. So I just worked full-time at McDonald's until I start working for a factory or what have you. And you could pay the rent. You could get a good used car for under $1,000. People were not going broke with medical bills. So it was the land of milk and honey, just like the angel promised Moses. Okay, continuing. Pharaoh, which again, if I didn't explain, Pharaoh is the king of Egypt. If we don't know, what's a pharaoh? Is that guy a singer? Doesn't he have a song? Everybody be happy or something? So Pharaoh, as expected, refused the demands from Moses. He said, hell no, I won't let your people go. I need those slaves. As punishment, God sent 10 plagues to the Egyptians. Oh my. None of which had any effect. Finally, one day it brought death in one night to the firstborn son of every Egyptian family. So a plague is an uncontrollable disease that sweeps over. It could be a possible country. Mainly, it's just a city, but we had the Black Plague in Europe that spread all through, I guess, Western and Eastern Europe. So it's a disease that can't be stopped. And look at this COVID, if we can't, instead of calling it a pandemic, if we can't stop it and it's just killing more people, then it will be called a plague. Okay, after this final plague, and remember, Pharaoh sent 10 plagues. Wow. Pharaoh, or the king of Egypt, let the Israelites go. Then he had second thoughts, like, what a stupid thing for me to do, because again, they were used for slave labor. A lot of people don't realize, they just say, and I didn't know when I was younger, you'd say, oh, look at the beauty of the pyramids. How did they build such things, and what kind of engineers, and you have to give them respect, and you should. But a lot of it was done with slave labor. So I guess a lot of Jewish folks helped build those pyramids, right? But anyway, you could be an Egyptian person too, whoever was deemed a slave. Pretty sad. So he had second thoughts and said, I'm giving up free labor. And then he sent his army after them to catch them and bring them back. And they caught up with the Israelites at the banks of the Red Sea. The army prepared to destroy them. I guess they probably gave them a chance. Come back and be a slave, or, we'll kill you. And I guess they said no. So as the army prepared to destroy them, God parted the Red Sea, which means they were, like, let's say, at the beach and the ocean was right in front of them. And Moses made the waters divide, it is said in the Bible, and made a clear path for the Jewish folks, the Israelites, to keep on running away. And it says, once the Israelites were safely on the other side, then the army came chasing them, and God made the Red Sea close. And the entire army that was there now drowned. They all died. Okay. So, yes. So we're done with Moses. So now I have a couple of questions for you. That was a long one, so I'm going to have two. I just can't have one there. So move on to the questions. Where's my pencil? Okay, start with question 3. Let me capitalize Moses' name. Oops. I want to put to do, not do to. Okay, let me see how I can stretch this one. Okay, two is a good one. So what appeared? So look here, I'm not asking you who, what appeared to Moses and in which form. So this what or it appeared in a certain form. Okay. So I'm not basically talking about a human, female, or male. And then once it appeared to Moses, what did it tell Moses to do? So this is not a list really, but the more information you give me on this answer, the more points I can give you. If you try to do this in a short way, I will not give you the points that I'll give a student that really writes out completely what the answer contains. Okay, because some students will just answer, briefly. It's like if I ask a question similar to this would be like, who was the ancient leader of the Mongols, and what did he accomplish? So if you just say, oh, you don't give me a sentence describing, you just say Temujin, right? Or Genghis Khan. So there's no sentence describing who he was or whatever. And then you say Genghis Khan united all Mongolians. You don't talk about the tribes or what have you. Or if you want to complete, and then you should also say what other countries he conquered or what he did. You just kind of do it basic. Genghis Khan, Mongolians. Okay, but if you write some information, you'll get more points. So go ahead with that on 3. I'll give you some time on that, and then I'll go over to 4. So I'm going to make sure you try to get as much info as you can. Doing okay on that? I hope so. Okay, I'm about to go to question 4, so I want to wrap that one up. Okay, I'm gonna move on to 4. Okay, I think I still have the pencil. 4. This is a good one. We kind of just ended the paragraph with this, or the reading. Should be easy peasy. Okay, so let me see about the stretching here. Right. What did Moses do to protect the Israelites from Pharaoh's army? Remember, they were being chased and they were going to be killed. So how did Moses protect them? Go at it. You guys doing okay? All right, again, hopefully my funny guys don't say, well, didn't he call the police? Is that what he did? And then they came and arrested Pharaoh's army? No. All right, so get the eraser. Repeating on 3, what appeared to Moses? Again, what? And in which form? Then what did it tell Moses to do? 4, what did Moses do to protect the Israelites from the Pharaoh's army? Oh, he made them get COVID injections. No. So erase. Go back to new share. Okay, so we got done with Moses, and now we're going to get into central beliefs. Okay. Make sure my pages are matching. Okay, good deal. Judaism is a religion of ethical monotheism. Okay, big language again, big words. Ethical means if you do something that's ethical, it's kind of like saying it's moral, it's good, it's the right thing to do. And then monotheism is the belief, again, as we learned earlier, in only one God. God is unique and the ultimate authority, but the utter and essential backbone or central, as we say now, core of the entire religion is the Torah, comprised of the first 5 books of the Bible attributed to Moses. So the Torah is a book, okay? It is a book. Just like the Bible is a book and the Muslims' Quran is a book. In addition to the Torah, Hebrew canon is the number 1 book, includes the Nevi'im, or the books of the prophets. Nevi'im are generally divided into 2 sections. The formal prophets comprise of 22 books, and the latter, which means later prophets, of which there are 12. The writings of the 12 minor prophets are copied onto 1 scroll so that they can be counted as 1 entry, so to speak. The total number of books in the Hebrew canon is 39, which was the number of scrolls on which they were originally written. So again, that's probably a question I'm not going to ask you, so don't worry. You know, I'm not gonna, how many books were there? I might throw you off. Okay, next part, the Torah. The Torah, the most important section of the Jewish Bible. So section, don't forget that, is a series of narratives or stories and laws that chronicle or number the beginning of the world through the death of Moses. Okay. Jewish people and Christians agree that Moses was the author of the 5 books, study of the Torah is considered an act of worship for the Jews. It is read religiously each Sabbath. Over the course of a year, the entire Torah will be read on Sabbath and festival days. There are daily and weekly classes and groups for those who wish to study the Torah. Okay. Okay, now we'll get into the Talmud. Now I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to read more before I get into these questions, okay? The Talmud, which means study or learning, is a reference to the interpretations, where's my arrow, of the Torah. It is a supreme source book of law, as it takes the rules listed in the Torah and describes how to apply them to different circumstances. It's not actually a legal code. There are other works for that. So remember that point. But it is the ultimate source material used to decide all matters of Jewish law. The Mishnah is the first part of the Talmud. Okay. Now that I've read the central beliefs, the Torah and the Talmud, now I shall get on to my next questions. Okay. And again, if you've been paying attention, this should be pretty easy peasy, lemon squeezy. 5. I should be able to make this into a 1. All right. What is the backbone of Judaism? Now, 2 things I want to make on this point on backbone. I think I explained this earlier, but if you don't know, what's a backbone? You mean the back of somebody's back? It means, again, the core. Okay, that's the words we use now, the core. Now, why am I using that word? I'm not trying to make it difficult for you to remember. Actually, it is a hint. I try not to change the words so you can find the material. So if you can find the backbone, you'll find the answer. See, if I change it to something else, if I say, what is the core of Judaism? It doesn't match to what's in the reading. I'm trying to make it easy for you guys. Okay. So take a minute and try to find the answer to that now that I've explained that. Yeah, I'm always trying to help you guys, but you got to do your part. And you respect me for it later. Okay, you doing okay on that? Want me to move on to the next channel? Okay. 6. Again, you should be able to trace where the answer is with this question. Oops, it should be is. And let me try to stretch this to a onesie. Yes. What is the Judaic Supreme Source Book of Law? Okay, give yourself a go on that one. And again, my funny guys don't say, is it the AAA manual? No. Go ahead. Okay, people, that should be plenty of enough time. It's time to get back to the eraser. Right. So repeating 5, what is the backbone or core of Judaism? 6, what is the Judaic Supreme Source Book of Law? All right. Back to the material, new share. So we ended up here with the Talmud. Now we're going to have to go to beliefs and practices. And let me match my book. Okie. Okay, we're almost home. We've done 6. That's more than half on the questions. Okay. While Orthodox Judaism adheres or sticks to the common Jewish principles, the following are some of the ways in which they are uncommon. Now we're talking about Orthodox Judaism. In addition to the Sabbath, which means the day of rest, if I haven't explained that, I think it's time for some more aircon. Religious holidays include the 3 biblical pilgrimage festivals: Passover, Pentecost, Tabernacles, the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. All holidays except the Day of Atonement are observed for 2 days. The first 2 days of Passover and the last 2 days of Tabernacles are days on which work is forbidden, as it is on the Sabbath. On Sabbath, you're not supposed to work. Usually that's a Sunday. And other holidays. The preparation of food is prohibited only on the Sabbath and the Day of Atonement. Hanukkah and Purim are post-biblical holidays and do not include a prohibition against work. So I probably won't ask you on the midterm something from this, but if I do, it's going to be really easy. You know, I'll just say something. If I do, like, you know, tell me a pilgrimage festival, right? And then of the list, it just might only have to tell me one, right? Or give me one meaning of one. That's if I decide to do that, right? We'll see. Orthodox households have strict rules regarding the way foods and their utensils are used. Meat and dairy products may not be eaten together or at the same time or same meal. A completely different set of utensils, which means knife, spoon, fork, is used for the 2 types of food. There are different storage areas and the utensils should be washed separately. The law so affects Orthodox Jews. Again, Orthodox, it kind of means very strict or conservative. they're very strict. Not the more modern people who've done a little twist on it. And they find it virtually impossible to eat out, except in strict kosher restaurants. So let me give you an example, just to open your eyes as my eyes were opened, okay? See if you find this entertaining. Okay, my LA people, if you know the big street, and you should, called Pico, okay? Pico Boulevard, all right? Which you can catch at the end of K-Town, okay? If you take Pico and you head towards, let's say, Beverly Hills, okay? It'll actually take you all the way to Santa Monica. But as you head to Beverly Hills, you'll reach an area which is like a K-Town, right? But it's a Jewish neighborhood, okay? Jewish. In fact, if you didn't know, since I've been in LA much longer than you folks, K-Town became K-Town in the early 1980s, okay? Before that time, the majority of people that lived here were Jewish. And they, I guess, moved on down towards Beverly Hills, okay? So this area is a Jewish area. There's many Jewish bakeries and restaurants and delis. And it's kind of a cool area, like any area. I like coming to K-Town so I can have bulgogi and other things. And then, I'll go to the Jewish area off of Pico, and I can go to some delis and have some Jewish, like I think there's Katz Deli or whatever, and I get a nice hot pastrami sandwich with mustard. You got to try it. Don't forget the pickle. So there's all kinds of restaurants there. So I said, hey, this Italian place looks pretty cool. And so I went in there. It's like a Friday night, and I had a date. I know you're going to be laughing. You actually had a date? I don't believe you, teacher. It can happen. It can happen. It was a miracle. I went to church first and prayed. So anyway, I went in there and I said, can I have a spaghetti and meat sauce? And the guy looked at me really strange. And then he said, this is a Jewish neighborhood. And he was an Orthodox Jew. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm not in a Jewish restaurant. I'm in an Italian restaurant. And he says, well, I'm the owner and I'm Jewish. So we can't give you spaghetti and meat sauce because we can't put meat with dairy, and the spaghetti is made from flour, and the flour you need milk. So that would be a mixing of meat and dairy. So we can't do it. You're going to have to get a tomato sauce. No meat. So there you go. There's Orthodox Jewish folks till this day, and there's synagogues there. And like it says here, it was hard to go out and eat. And it was for me that I had to go to a different city at that point. He says, all the Italian places here, they're owned by Jewish folks. You won't be able to get what you want. So they still take effect. So I thought you might know that. So like it says, Orthodox Jews find it virtually impossible to eat out at restaurants except in strict kosher restaurants. But again, they still can't mix the food. They'll refuse. There are no restrictions about medical treatment. Orthodox Jews consider physicians or doctors instruments through which God can effect or make a cure. So I'll give you an offshoot, not an offshoot, but a parallel of that, right? So Jews think doctors are great and God can work through doctors to find a cure. Now, if anybody's familiar with any Jehovah's Witnesses, I had a good friend For many years, I was a Jehovah's Witness, and well, I can't call it a church. They have their own language. They call it a meeting hall. And so they are completely opposite. They, on certain issues, they don't believe in doctors. So if you need a blood transfusion, the doctor says, we got to give this person a blood transfusion. They get into a car accident and they lost a lot of blood and they'll die without a blood transfusion. Their Bible says that it's wrong to have different blood put into your body. So in that case, you just pray and hopefully God will let you live. But the Orthodox Jews say, no, whatever the physician or doctor does, we believe that it will help find a cure. So there's differences in faith. When it comes to death, funeral, and burial requirements, the form is to follow the established way, but it prohibits cremation, and cremation is where they burn the body and give you the ashes. So Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, does not believe in that. I used to work at Forest Lawn Cemetery, which is probably the largest cemetery in California. I used to work there, and the area between Glendale and what becomes downtown or LA proper. And I saw a lot of strange things there. Besides me protecting Michael Jackson's body 24 hours a day, it seemed like. But to put you in a basket or a coffin, as we say, can be very expensive. And a lot of times people don't save up for funeral expenses. They think, well, I'm not going to die, and then suddenly they die. And then they'll tell you something like, well, what kind of coffin do you want to bury your father in, or your mother, or your husband? The prices start at $10,000. And that's the low end, The person says, oh my God, I don't have $10,000 to spend on the funeral arrangements. And that's just the box, right? As they say, not the whole thing. And they'll charge you for everything, digging the hole and burying and, the whole schlazo. So a lot of people, even if they're like the mother or father had the faith, but they didn't have any money and the son has to bury and he doesn't have any money, he usually goes for cremation, because cremation can cost you maybe $1,000. It's a way lot cheaper. So they kind of say, well, I know their faith didn't want that, but I don't have any money. So it's interesting. But in the traditional ways, no, you're not supposed to get cremated. So apart from very unusual circumstances, such as promoting justice, autopsies, which everybody knows autopsies here, if they see the TV show CSI, that's when somebody dies mysteriously and then they want to find out, what did they die of? And they have to cut your body open and look at your brain and, oh, he died of a drug overdose, right? Which they wouldn't be able to tell unless they did that. But the traditional Orthodox faith is you cannot cut open the body, as it says here. This is not permitted. I know you can't see it here, but I can tell you it's called mutilation, and that's when you destroy the body. This is felt as a sign of disrespect for the dead. You're supposed to leave the body alone. A rabbi or priest should be consulted before an autopsy is considered. So I guess only in the most severe circumstances, like maybe the person did mysteriously die and the family needs to know for insurance reasons or a police matter, then they will talk to a priest or a Jewish rabbi. That's the meaning. And maybe the rabbi will say, okay, in this situation, it's okay. Contraception is limited to women. So that means birth control is limited to women. So I guess, the birth control pill. A vasectomy, which means cutting of the man's tubes that give sperm, or the use of a condom by a male is not permitted. Men are not supposed to do that. I didn't even know that till recently. I'm not Jewish, so I don't know. Abortion is permitted if the continuation of the pregnancy gives grave physical or psychiatric dangers. So what that means is abortion is only permitted if the mother might possibly, there's a high percentage she will die trying to give birth, or psychiatric dangers. So let's say, unfortunately, a woman was raped and she's going crazy and does not want to have the baby. So in that case, okay, she can have an abortion. All right. So let me see. Want to make sure. Right. Okay. So I'm going to, oh, I can proceed. Yay. Okay. No, I shouldn't. Yeah, I have to talk about orthodoxy. All right. So question time. Get carried away with the trying to give you stories to relate it to real life. All right, 7. So here's an easy peasy way. Okay, so here's a list one. So again, I've told you every quarter, new folks, the more you list, the more points you get. If you see it's a list, that means more than one. So if the student just puts 1, they might just get 1. The student lists 4, then I get 4 points. So list some Orthodox rules about foods. So I gave you my experience. I told you what I was not allowed to eat when I walked into an Italian restaurant that was owned by an Orthodox Jewish person. Okay, so go ahead, make that list. So again, my funny guys, and you know who you are. It could even be Pamela, Miss Titan. You know, oh, some Orthodox rules. Well, you can't eat a Big Mac and then at the same time eat In-N-Out double. You can't cross burger. You know, you can only eat a burger from one place. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Right? Okay, you think you got that list running? Okay. Give you 8. Okay, let me do a stretchy poo. Uh-oh, did I wait too late on this one? Ah, it's getting sensitive. There we go. All right, what do Orthodox Jews consider physicians, which is a high-level word for doctors? What do they consider them, right? What power do they feel that they have, or who do they work through? Okay, so go ahead and try to answer that. And again, my funny guys don't say, well, they work through Joe Biden, I think, and then Dr. Fauci, because he said, you know, you got to get a shot. It's not what I'm talking about. Okay, getting cold, turning off the aircon. Okay, you think you got that, Dr. Fauci? Okay, racer time. All right. So list some Orthodox rules about food. Whatever. It basically is about what things you can't do. And then what do Orthodox Jews consider physicians? Right. Back to a new share. The material. So we went down to psychiatric dangers. So now we move into the essential element. The essential element, again, it's another way of saying core, as we say now, of Orthodox Judaism is the complete and utter adherence to established laws. So the main theme is that you have, like I mentioned earlier, you have to follow the rules. There's no, but I don't want to. Or what if I change it like this? Or is it okay if I do it like that? No, it's not allowed. Everything in the life of an Orthodox Jew is directly related to the affirmation of that ethic. That means the conviction of that ethic. There are even some communities that maintain holy Israel should live wholly apart from Gentiles. How about that? You always hear about the struggle between Israelis and Palestinians. But people who are really, really Orthodox and strict say, you know, Israelis shouldn't even live with people who are not Israeli. So that means, you know, Caucasian guy, black guy, Asian guy. Nope, only with Israelis. That's how strict some of these people can be, because they want you to have it's easier to follow the rules that way, right? It's, you live in the main city, it's temptation is really tough. Another more moderate members agree that integration with Western culture while maintaining the law of the Torah, together with secular, which means non-religious, politics and general social affairs is preferable or a better situation. Might be tougher, but people who are more moderate say that might be better. It is estimated that only about 10% of the total Jewish population in America is Orthodox. So very, very small number. The Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations, which represents about 1,000 congregations, was founded in New York City in 1898, and there is a large Jewish community in New York City. Now I move into Hasidic Judaism. Hasidic Jews are the most Orthodox of the Orthodox movement, even though strictly speaking, both are distinct or different branches of Judaism. Hasidic Jews adhere or follow absolutely to the teachings of the written law, the Torah, and the oral law, the Talmud. The sect or branch began in Poland in 1760. I will not ask you that. When did the Hasidic Judaism start and where? Led by a revivalist named Eliezer Baal Shem Tov, master of the good name, who stressed the study of Jewish literature. In the Hasidic tradition, a master is also known as Tzaddik or righteous man. The master has a direct line to God. After the founder's death, Hasidism spread throughout Europe and diversified. The main body of the sect remained in Europe. Let me check on my questions. Okay, I guess I can go a little more. Until the Holocaust, which was in World War II, when the tremendous number of Hasidic Jews were slaughtered or killed by the Nazis. Some escaped to the United States. In New York, they settled predominantly in Brooklyn, like I said, New York, where today about 100,000 followers live. Now we, I'm going to go back and answer. I have one question about Hasidic, so let me get that out of the way. Okay, this will be question 9. So you know we're getting close because I usually ask only 10 questions. So stretchy wedgy. Can I do it? A onesie? Yes. What things that Hasidic Judaism absolutely adhere to, which means stick to, follow through to the law, 100%. What are these things? So you get an S here. Sounds like another list to me. So list what you can. The more the merrier. Take your time on that list. Hey, you think you got that? All right. We go to the eraser. Repeating what things that Hasidic Judaism absolutely 100% adhere to. Okay, let's go on to finish the reading and deal with our last question. Okay. We've ended up with 100,000 followers live in Brooklyn. Okay. Reform Judaism. Sorry, no, reform is to change. Reform Judaism is a movement that modified or abandoned, which means stop going to visit or stop doing many of the traditional Jewish beliefs, laws, and practices. They stopped doing those things in order to bring Judaism into the modern world in all aspects of social, political, and cultural conditions. Now you hear about people talking about Muslim extremists, like the Taliban that's gone into Afghanistan and have made women cover their bodies and arrested them and killed people and cut people's heads off and what have you. They're trying to get a reform into Islam for them so that they say, stop those ancient practices, you know. So this happened in the Jewish faith here. The movement began in Germany in the 19th century in response to appeals to update the Jewish liturgy and other rituals. The Jews were being liberated from the ghettos, which is a poor area where they lived, and many began to question Jewish tradition and its dietary laws, prayers said in Hebrew, even the wearing of special outfits that set them apart as Jews. So some people didn't like the dietary laws. You know, they were angry or upset, like me. I'm like sitting here in an Italian restaurant. It looks good, but I can't have a spaghetti and meat sauce. So I have to leave, right? They also said they didn't like probably people who could not speak Hebrew, the later generations. They were probably upset. They're kind of lazy, right? They don't want to learn the language. So they say, why can't we say the prayers in English? Even the wearing of special outfits that set them apart as Jews. So I guess at that time, they didn't take pride in these old costumes. You know, and this happens across, not even only in religion, but in my experience in anything. I'll give you another story from me. When I first started working in Koreatown many years ago, there was this beautiful receptionist that worked in the first school that I worked in. Beautiful gal. And from Korea, hadn't been in the United States too long. And she was getting married. So I congratulated her. And then asked a very simple question that from what I had seen, and my students had invited me to a few Korean weddings, and every time in the marriage, the women wore the traditional Korean woman's outfit called the hanbok, and they look quite beautiful. They look like dolls. They're very beautiful. So I'd been to 3 or 4, maybe 5 weddings. And every time the Korean lady wore a hanbok. So I asked her, hey, so what color hanbok are you going to wear for this? She got angry at me. She was definitely 100% city and modern woman and said, hell no, I'm not going to wear a hanbok. That's from my mother. I don't wear that. I'm young and free and oh my God. Okay. So like I said, people can get, the following generations can go away from some traditional beliefs. Okay, now we go into the first Reform services. A Jewish layman, which means an uneducated person, Israel Jacobson, began a school in Seesen, Brunswick, Germany in 1801. And no, I was not alive in 1801. Thank you. In 1809, he held the first Reformed services. The liturgy was in German, which means the reading, not Hebrew. Men and women were allowed to sit together. So before they were separated, like in a mosque, in the Islamic mosque. Organ and choir music were added to the service, and Jacobson instituted confirmation for boys and girls to replace the traditional bar mitzvah. So that's a coming of age ceremony. I won't get into that. The services also left out all references to a personal Messiah who would restore Israel as a nation. So they stopped talking about that. That's what that means. The questions being asked were, who is Israel? Who? What is the way of life? How does it account for the existence of a distinct and distinctive group? Okay, this should be the last of our reading. Okay. Make sure here. The spreading movement. The Reform movement was not a success in Europe. Many European governments that regulated religious communities didn't countenance more than one form of Judaism in any particular locale, so they didn't want another form of Judaism in the same city. It was in the United States, to which the movement was imported by the mass German Jewish immigration in the 1840s, that it flourished or succeeded or multiplied. By 1880, although all of the 200 synagogues in the US had become Reform, they changed them from Orthodox to Reform. In 1885, the Pittsburgh Platform, put together by Reform rabbis, declared that Judaism was an evolutionary faith and should be de-orientalized, which take away a lot of the formalities. One conclusion was that the Talmud should be looked at as a religious literature, not as legislation or meaning law. Now we have a question. What do Reform Jews believe? One of the guiding principles of Reform Judaism is the autonomy of the individual, which is your own power, self-power. A Reform Jew has the right to decide whether to subscribe to each particular belief or practice, so he can kind of pick and choose. As Rabbi W. Gunther Plaut wrote, Reform Judaism affirms that the fundamental principles of liberalism, that the individual will approach his body or mitzvot, commandments of freedom and choice. Current movements advocate a return to more traditional mores, though. People are going back to the traditional. That happens in anything. When people want to start getting wild and then they get too wild, they're like, I think we should be a little more controlled and go traditional. In 1999, leaders of the Reform Judaism embraced rituals associated more with conservative and Orthodox Judaism than with the Reform movement. Wearing yarmulkes, which is the little circular hat that you'll see Jewish men wear, and prayer shawls, which is a shawl that they wear around their neck. Observing dietary laws, so they're like, maybe I will start observing that. And then conducting prayer services in Hebrew, so the Hebrew made a comeback. So if I press again, see, we're done. So yay, previous. So let me go to the last question and we shall be done. The reading is done. But we need, let me get the pencil, question 10. Okay, should it be an easy one or a hard one? Okay, it'll be a descriptive one. So I read a little long on that, so this should be helpful for your answer. What is Reform Judaism? So again, the more you can tell me about it, the more points you get. If I've had funny people like, what is Reform Judaism? It's Judaism that reforms. That's not the answer, right? But they think that's funny and they think they can get all the points with that. Obviously, it's just somebody that didn't study. So give me what you can on that. And again, maybe at least 2 sentences. That's my hint. Okay, so go at it. Okay, you guys doing okay on that? All right. So eraser. Okay, what is Reform Judaism? Again, at least 2 sentences. Give me a good little background on it. Give a backbone, okay? All right. So let me go to the stop share. So there we are, people. That is for today. I even changed the top. So I will see you guys next week. Please take care. Bye-bye.